Hey, it's Nick Tuminello. I want to show you how we do the 2-bench hip thrust hamstring curl. Now, normally we'd have 2 benches running parallel, but this is the craziest designed bench I've ever seen. Sitting flat, it's actually on somewhat of a decline. Luckily, the back end's wide enough for me to put my feet on. So normally you'd have 2 benches parallel if you didn't have a wacky bench like this one. So here is the way most people do the 2-bench hip thrust. Some people just call this a regular hip thrust. I call a regular hip thrust with just the shoulders on the bench, feet on the floor. When the feet are elevated to get more range of motion, we call it a 2-bench hip thrust. So the difference is in the foot position for what we're looking for in order to bring in more of a hamstring curl aspect of things. So the way I see this done most of the time in the basic hip thrust is the feet are positioned kind of in the front of the bench, so they'd be more in the corner of the bench, almost like you were going to push the bench away from you. And then the hips drop, and then the hips come up, driving into the feet. And that's done to keep the knees more 90 degrees. All right, what I'm looking for to bring the hamstrings into it, and that's fine if you want to do it. I prefer to try to bring the hamstrings into it. So what I want is the feet a bit higher up on the bench. That extends the legs a little bit. And I don't want the feet that way. I want the feet like this. All right, so when the hips come down, now I'm going to pull it through a hamstring curl to get me to this point, and the rest is glutes, glutes, glutes. And if you notice at the top, I'm not at a 90-degree angle at my knee. My knees are a little straighter. That would be more of a 90-degree angle. That keeps more tension on my hamstrings. If I had my legs even longer, that'd be even more tension on my hamstrings. So that's how we teach the 2-bench hip thrust hamstring curl. First is dig into the bench. It's mostly coming from here, my hamstrings. And then as I get up, these start to do more of an isometric, and then the hips start going into that last end range extension. And you do feel the difference when you put this into action with your feet like that. So it's heels at the top of the bench, dig them in, versus midfoot at the front of the bench where you lift and then try to flatten your feet, which is more like you would do with your feet on the floor. So that's how we coach and use the 2-bench hip thrust hamstring curl.